So I hope you all had good food and some still coming from food. I hope you are relaxed but not falling asleep. So it's always a little bit challenging after lunch break to get back into the topics. So I'm really happy to be here. It's my pleasure to talk here, and it's actually the first time being on a presence conference for a very long time for me. So I'm really excited to have the possibility to speak here. Also very excited to be back in Bratislava. So before COVID, we are heavily developing our products together with Siemens Advanta here, and I was here every 3 months for increment planning, and I really like the people and the city. So for me, it's really good to be back here. So my name is Timo Wolf. I'm a computer science person. I studied at Technical University Munich, made my doctoral thesis there, some research position in Canada, and I joined Siemens about 15 years ago at corporate technology, and I'm with building products about 4 or 5 years right now. Maybe just one poll to get you awake. So I heard it's good practice to ask some questions at the beginning. So who of you still like programming or being in technology really? So all of you almost, right? That's good. Yeah, I will talk about how we align front-end technologies, and here's a short agenda. So I give a little bit of the context I'm working in. We define the technology stack. We describe the developer experience of our users. We recognize to really align product and development, there needs to be more than just a tech stack. I hope to give a good demo, a long demo, and we will look at CI/CD and then round up with some challenges in enterprise using open source software, some community success factors, and some key takeaways. So Siemens, what's Siemens all about? It's a technology company, and it transforms the everyday for tomorrow's challenge, and it's huge. So Siemens has more than 300,000 employees, all working in different areas. So it's a wide variety of business, from digital industries, factory automation, mobility. We have here Siemens Advanta doing lots of development for different businesses and products. And me personally, I'm now in smart infrastructure. And this is about energy, edge grid, and I'm in the smart building areas. So what's our smart buildings? It's enriching the buildings with sensors, with equipment, and also connecting existing equipment to make the buildings smarter, to provide new functions, and to reduce the resources the buildings consume. So we have a couple of products, a huge range coming from connected devices, field devices, for HVAC products, building automation to control and manage all the big buildings. We have security, fire safety, surveillance, video. We have lots of topics, and all of these products are then in addition offered by digital services. So software products to enhance, to connect this on-premise, in the cloud, and in huge solution projects also. And all the different products have user interfaces that hopefully should look the same and enable a continuous user experience. And we are developing a platform called Simpl. It's a mobile and web platform that we developed or started in developing like almost 7-8 years ago, where all the web development started to really take off. And there were tons of technologies popping up. So really felt there is a need to align all this technology, what does work in our context, to bring best practices together. Every some months there's a new best technology that should be used better than the other. So we really want to have two things to align here and collaborate and roll out technology. Two, and this is what we currently do, is really to provide a continuous user experience from field devices to big management stations, to cloud services and mobile apps. So what we do, we work, maintain, watch open source technology, decide what works best, work in a global team with all the development projects and support them. We enable then knowledge sharing, code sharing, and build up a community around this technology. We also closely work then with the user experience team and gather shared requirements that are then implemented in common components and delivering to our product developments so that they can really focus on the application use cases, and all the overall workflows and custom components are provided by us. Our platform is used in more than 1,000 applications nowadays. We have a community of about 800 members, active members. It's all worked in something that is called InnerSource, so we heavily involve them that they can also contribute. It's working like open source, but just in the context of Siemens. We have a global GitLab instance privately with 40,000 developers, and we provide this platform over our GitLab instance there. Just heavily, we are about 170 merge requests, or similar to pull requests on GitHub, closing about 60 issues a month, and we have tons of packages to distribute, and just like a very easy package, but used by tons of products, is a font package with some special Siemens fonts, which has more than 500K downloads at the moment. And so what is that? Maybe some nice screen at the end is we are developing design systems, and here's one of our design system. And of course, it provides components, graphical components, user interfaces. So ranging from very primitive atoms, input boxes, buttons, sliders. We define the colors, spacings in between together with our designers. We have horizontal toolbars, vertical toolbars. We have then, based on this, more advanced components specific for the building domain, and provide all these kind of components to our product development. We have it in light. These days, you also have it in dark. So everyone who do software development needs to have a dark screen. And we have it also themable for OEM customers. So you can have a color token system that can be changed and adapted to needs of OEM customers. And those is built then into field devices. So this is a smart thermostat, a companion app, a mobile native app where you can download it from iOS, Apple app stores. It is built in large management station. This is the Seago here for commissioning, bringing up all these devices, configuring them, controlling them, measuring what's ongoing. Up to cloud software. This is a new application which is also heavily developed here in Bratislava called the Energy Manager. This is about one or multiple buildings where we aggregate all the consumptions up into the cloud, and the users can actually see their consumption in terms of CO2 and if they meet the requirements, and having a database actually to reduce the consumption of the buildings here. So when building this up, what did we do? We had functional requirements for our platform, and when coming from industry, I think for many in Siemens, it was new a couple of years ago to really be open and reuse open source. So what we really wanted to foster is reuse open source as much as possible, or COTS components, because we can just use them, contribute, be a good part of the community, and focus on our domain here. And another big problem was in a big enterprise with all these with proxies and firewalls, especially a couple of years ago, is really to make the open source development applicable and accessible. That you can just work there with a package manager directly, get everything, make it clean, have internal caches, do upstream development so that you can change actually where certain binaries gets downloaded from. Not all open source is developed in a way that it really works in an enterprise network infrastructure. So you really want it applicable. And only add things that we need from Siemens on top of it, of course. Having everything very modular, little packages, so every developer or project can choose just maybe a little font package or a component package, or use everything up to a full-site client-side architecture. And then support the developers throughout the whole process, from starting, get productive in a couple of minutes, install everything, quality aspects, how do we test, how we do linting, what is the right code styling, how do we accessibility, how do we do visual regression tests, can we do this on every commit, how does the CI build pipeline work, and then it sums up a lot. So really support the whole workflow and listen to the developer what's needed and what's not. And it's sometimes complicated because there are like these requirements and you can say this makes sense or not, but you all know that sometimes you have discussions, is Java better than .NET or this or that? It's also a subjective topic when you talk to the developers, so you really need to take care and to listen to everyone. So what did we decide for a couple of years ago? We made a main decision for the main open source projects we are using, and we decided for Angular many years. It was just Angular.js at that time, and we wanted to have a cross-platform stack for browsers, so desktop application and native mobile applications. And of course, the desktop application are also responsive, but for the large applications, they often have different complexities. And when you really want to develop a mobile app, you have specific use cases for the service technicians on the side, talking to the same backend services, but a very narrow focus. So you want to have a different interaction here. And at that time, Ionic was very strong on mobile, CSS framework, cross-platform for iOS and Android, and Angular was a natural fit at that time. There was React around. We also looked to the licenses. At that time, the license was way more easy to use in an enterprise environment to go for Angular. And we are still very happy with that. It's a big platform providing us everything what we have. So how is it working? So these technologies are then working in a web technology, in a web stack, and running in a browser. For native apps, we have some native runtimes. Some years ago, or for many years, we're using Cordova only. Now we are also using Capacitor. It's a wrapper from Ionic also. And we are also using more and more Electron for actually having desktop applications written in web technology. Then on top of the technology stack, we provide our components, our best practices as the Simpl layer. And on top of that, the product development teams are developing their application and the business use case. Here's an overview of the key technologies, all open source: Angular, Bootstrap, SAS as a CSS framework. We are writing in TypeScript. Ionic, as you said. For package manager, we are using Yarn as well as NPM. Mainly, when you go into the mobile development, you have way more package managers around than going into the native stacks too. For testing, it's Karma and Jasmine mainly for unit tests, Cypress for end-to-end tests, integrated with X for accessibility tests and virtual regression tests. And this really sums up in a huge technology. And this is just like an overview. And the web world is really fast. It changes continually. We just recognized there's more, not just the tool stack. So we really need to support the developers from starting. We have such, as mentioned, 300,000 users. Not all are developers, but you need to be attractive as being an open source platform. You need to support them from the beginning with a generator, get productive in short term, have a setup how they get support from the UX team of the screens of the full application, have online documentation. Then during development, have sessions, you need to be present. So we have monthly sessions showing off what's new, asking for questions, seeing what the products, what they increased there. And we need to have support for all the quality aspects in CI/CD pipeline. We have continuous development and deployment, especially for the cloud. And I just want to demonstrate this a little bit. Oh, I'm sorry for this. Now I need my glasses. So get a little bit in the development mode. So we have a global platform, codesiemens.com, and we have also pages on that. Some things that you might know from GitHub also. You have like GitHub pages, these are GitLab pages. And here we have our platform, our documentation. And this is like the entry point to everything. So we provide global information, documentation, multiple design systems. I will focus on one today. And we have the web and mobile stack of items and lots of community things. And it should be, even if you're in a controlled environment, it's so big, it should be just as any other project. You just say, as a developer, you go there and say, hey, let's get started. I don't want to read all that stuff, and it needs to be up and running pretty soon, right? And then you're even like more convinced. So here it's a little installation instructions. So our NPM packages are in their own registry, works together with open source registries. And I already did the installation locally. And then we have a generator. We are using Yeoman for a very long time. And you just need, after installation, to type it in. And then is it readable? Then we have like a template generator to get started. So we have like web application, mobile application, desktop, or even like another library. Let's go for the web application. And here, let's go for the element design system. And how about a boilerplate ready for production? I need to give the project a name. I just take what there is. I just say this is a great project. And that's also good practice. Start with Git directly. So asking me for a Git repository. So this is our codesiemens.com, our internal Git repository. So I can just say, let's create a new project here, create an empty one, demo, web element live. I need to pick a scope. Now I just can already grab my new Git URL. And now the critical part comes in, downloading the dependencies. I hope it is fast now on the network, but seems to work. The project is generated. In parallel, I will start up what's created here. And a full project is available. Maybe if we look at the central piece, which is the package management, we can have a look at here. And what we always try is to take the best practices from open source. So this is an Angular project. We have pre-selected other packages for translation and a CDK for some components, also from Google Angular. And in addition, it's now our design system, it's our component library, a theme here, some icons, and that's almost it. let's see. Oh yeah. So all the dependencies are already loaded. And then maybe it's also good practice before we do anything, we just go in here and push the initial state to our server repository. So this is where developers start. Now I have a new project, demo web element live. A standard README is there, batches are there, we have a license, code coverage is not that there, how to start for others to increase sharing, how to unit test, and CI/CD pipeline also should be started directly. So this is like the developer experience, getting there and starting there very quick. Then also best practices from open source. Put in the key things here in the scripts, how to deal with all the projects that people understand when they are looking into this. So I can just like type in npm run start to see what's coming out of it. Compiling and running. So this is now working on my local machine. And I have a full application. So there's a landing page. Of course, then the icon or the application needs to set their own icons here. We have a login page. What we also see here is we have like dark and the light themes. So depending on the OS, this is directly supported. We have translation, so it's end-to-end everything that you actually need as cross-cutting concerns. You can click on login. You have a horizontal and vertical navigation working on mobile screens. Having like the legal point where the about dialog goes in, corporate information, then OSS clearing and README should be there. So everything is defined so that people can really start directly adding application or business logic here into the applications. In addition, the test set is also running. So initial unit test, you just need to type npm run tests. And the whole skeleton is available for code quality, for unit testing. You have a linting stack for coding style, and we can also have different predefined linting rules that we distribute within the company. Also linting rules to support accessibility. So whenever you go now into the real application, let's go somewhere here to the pages, to whatever the main component. So whenever we do something strange here, just do something else. Then we find that the linting will fail. Also here, it always makes sense to work with standards, open source standards that can be executed in command line for the CI/CD pipeline, as well as read in different EDAs. So that we are able to apply these rules anywhere and also fix it automatically. And we also recognize in different project teams, it's really worth to be very strict here, have less rules, but be very strict. And when you don't meet the rules, let fail the build pipelines directly. Otherwise, you are adding more and more technical debt here, and it gets not resolved or gets more complicated to resolve this later. So what else is in here? Cypress. So sorry. You can directly start also the end-to-end test. We are using Cypress here and are pretty happy also for virtual regression tests. So we have a full mocked Cypress development environment here, not yet much in, but everything ready for starting. So the developer can really there's now one test in here that the headline is available. And all of this stuff can directly also be executed from the CI/CD pipeline. So I hope now in parallel, when we go back here to our project, the pipeline in the new project just run through. Green pipeline, green to green. E2E test is there. The application was built already in a production build, and it is configured to use also GitLab pages, so that in starting off here with this project settings, there is something in our environment that the front-end application is directly deployed to the GitLab pages. So we are directly in here. And when a team is starting, they can start directly with their PMs, POs, show something, what's ongoing, and then hook it up, bringing it to the cloud or somewhere else. But with this, it's like fulfilling the complete development cycle, and every merge request, every change now generates the whole pipelines, also generates this prototype application, so that they try to, on every increment, slice to bring everything end to end, make it available, so that we are always on a green to green state and can deploy all the time. Good. So when we follow then the development, we build up a huge documentation system. So here's our design system. And we have an overview on how to get started with all the definitions like fundamentals, typography. For every topic, there's always like a usage section from the design, a specification, and then we have a runtime code editor developed where you can try it out and actually interact with the components. So I'm jumping a little bit through now, looking at the time. We have everything here. So it goes, as mentioned, from the low-level buttons, form input, switcher, text area, file uploader component. We integrated here a development system that we can describe the use cases, the usage of the component using Markdown, and integrating in interactive development, so that we can have a documentation using storytelling. So where we describe some use cases, and then at the same time show this with a real-time demo, where we have an editor that can go right to left, light and dark. You can go full screen. You could drag some files now here to go to test it. And you can go in here and actually edit and change it. So whatever you type in gets runtime compiled and be visible. So this is always a nice demo on usage, horizontal navigation. We have the legal requirement that needs to go in here. And if we look at like, this is a very important component, we can just go in here and enter a different name. This is Timo, for example, and you see the changes directly up here. So actually the designers can go in here and configure their components as they want, and then use this as a communication also to the developers. So they can say, hey, I don't want to have this up here. This should not be called operations manager. That should be open Slava. I think that's without a space. And then they can actually open this up and or even sharing the link. So what we do is we can copy all the template directly in and then share it, send it via Teams to someone else, and they can just follow up the link and see the same prototype at runtime. And of course, what's very important, involve the developers from the products in the platform development. So whenever they have any feature request, nothing or something is not working, they should write a bug report. Here's a direct link. So we are jumping directly into the Git project that develops this component with some template, and they are directly involved here, creating a new issue, maybe some bugs or questions or any kind of item they have to complain or add here to that specific component. Good. So that was like the demo. And over time, we really worked a lot here with open source and also need to challenge a little bit on how we work with open source software. Glasses back. So one thing is there's massive packages diversity of the open source world there. So what we do is we kind of pre-select technology standards and then roll them out, and starting with this pre-selection of a project template. So that developers start with a kind of controlled environment, but then can change a little bit what they do, and that makes sense because we don't know any or all the application use cases, but they are starting from a common ground. And when they add additional things, we are getting back into feedback loops and see what we can back into our central platform. Also, versions, we need to do open source clearing, like we are scanning all that stuff for copyright headers and if everything is fine with the versions. And this gets really complicated because like every day there's a new version of Angular or the other ones, and you can do this continuously. And also here with some open source experts, we heavily watch and involve the open source community and build up trusted communities. So there, where we see over time, they take really great care of declaring what is developed as an MIT license and whatnot. And then we can declare certain open source community as trusted communities and can reduce the clearing a little bit more for certain minor versions. So we really need to be in the open source communities. Dependencies, we really recognized at the beginning, we started with a central platform where we defined all the dependencies, and this ends up in a huge mess. Now we are working with peer dependencies, saying we have our software, and to our components that they work, they can work with a certain range of versions of these components, but the developer can actually select what version they really need. And of course, what we have lots of documentation. We work with global clearing teams, how to deal with open source, which versions are typically used, and bring and help the developer in here. Starting really with telling that if you are using open source technology, you also should at least have a couple of those people in your project that really understand that open source into the deep thing that they understand it. And if it breaks up, that we can also upstream help here and work out. Other key success factors, really be present. As I already mentioned, we have like monthly meetings, we have workshops, presenting new technologies, involve all the development teams, have a transparent planning that everybody can see what are the focus topics actually and what's ongoing, and be visible everywhere. And as just showed, having a low entry point for newbies to get into the whole platform. With that, like the key takeaways: do less, do it well. That like one thing. Have a continuity. So be transparent and not change all the time. So really try to be reliable, and otherwise you are really interrupting the product development if you are changing too fast. And have a holistic approach. So support everything, the whole development workflow, and not saying this is a great technology, but how you do testing or how you ensure quality, this is actually not enough. So you really need to have full development workflow support into the different roles of development. And with that, I would like to thank you for listening, and I'm up for questions.
Yes, thank you very much. You hit the record of this room in the number of questions. So I'm unfortunately sure that we are not able to answer all of them, but let's try the most liked. Yeah, mandatory question. If you had to change Angular for the different front-end framework today, which one would you choose?
That's the perfect question, right? So Java is so bad, and the other one is also bad. Actually, I believe that it doesn't matter at all. All the web technologies are great. I mean, what we are talking about probably is Vue, React, and Angular, right? These three are there. And I guess like 90% of all problems can be solved with all of them. For Siemens, actually, I think Angular is the best one, because we are like coming from industry with a strong background from Java development, from .NET development, and many people go over there. And Angular provides more like a complete platform. You have less flexibility. You have TypeScript. Everything is as a platform defined. And if you go for the others, you have more flexibility and can bring in more different things. So I think if you're coming from the web development, you would probably go more for Vue.js, which is a great one. And React is also a great one. I think for our use case, still Angular is the right choice, but there is also subjective feeling. At the end, I believe it's all running in the browser and ending up in JavaScript. So most problems can be solved by any of those platforms.
Thank you. Let's try one more, which just disappeared. Yeah, it was a quick question. Yes, no. Is the design system publicly available?
Not yet, actually. We are thinking about, but it's at the moment not available. So it's easy for partners to hook them up, because we are also, as you just saw, accessible over the internet. We have ongoing discussions if we actually open source it. At the beginning, we were thinking we are taking open source and provide and help Siemens. So at the beginning, some years ago, it was not like the idea that somebody else would benefit from it. But now we have more and more questions actually for this. So we are thinking about, yes.
Okay, and I think that's it, because time's up. So if you are interested in something else, I'm sure that Dr. Timo will have some time for you. So you can just stop him somewhere outside. Thank you very much.